Welcome. This is Inner Whispers Radio. It's also a blogcast. This is our episode number 3. My name is Alan. I will be your host today. This show features April Crawford, who's a full-body open deep trance channel and best-selling author, and Veronica. Veronica is our name for a causal plane entity who's been with us for quite a while. And she got that name basically because she refused to give us a name in the beginning, saying that she didn't like labels. We gave her Veronica. Now everybody knows Veronica in the cosmos. So the basic plan for today's show is, besides my diatribes, is to ask April to say a few words if she wants to. And then she'll bring in Veronica, who will also say whatever she wants to. I have an idea of the kind of things I want to talk about with Veronica, subjects and even some specific questions. But this is all extraneous. I mean, extraneous, wrong word. Whatever that word is. There's no cheat sheets. There's no planning. There's no, it's probably obvious. And there's no cue cards. So anyway, that would just wasted a bunch of time. I'm going to hand the phone to April now.
Hi, everyone. It's April. I usually don't get a chance to talk a lot because usually I'm just sort of the vessel for Veronica to come through. But I want you all to know what transpires here in my office when we do readings or we're doing this podcast. I have 2 dogs, Guinness and Little Bit, who Little Bit sits on the desk in her dog bed and Guinness is on the floor in his dog bed. And they're just as much a part of this whole process as anyone else is. They come in. They're very quiet. When we first got them, Alan was certain that they were going to be disruptive, that they were going to bark, they were going to jump all over the place and cause trouble, and we might have to go put them in the car or something while we're waiting to do this. And never. They do have their moments of being ornery and, we'll say, talkative. But when it comes down to doing the readings, it's almost like the spirit just sort of enfolds them and brings them into it. And sometimes we have very long days when we're doing sessions and things, and they never cause a problem. They settle down, they kind of move into the spirit of it, and are very good. And I probably couldn't do this without them because they're like my little soulmates in this lifetime. They come and help me do things. So once in a while, I like to get a chance to talk because I usually never do. And I just wanted to tell you all about my dogs. I also have a bevy of cats, but that's for another day.
Okay. Well, I assume that Veronica will be dropping by soon. And as soon as she gets here, I have some subjects to suggest. And I think it's going to be soon. And she's here. Or she says, we're here. So, Veronica, the first topic I'd like to bring up is something that comes up all the time for people writing in. People have readings, and it has to do with soulmates and what some people call our twin flames. And there's a whole series of different things people are interested in with those two. One is, how do they find their soulmate in their twin flame and recognize it? Another one is, what happens if they lose a soulmate that they think they have, and like they could be married for 40 years and somebody dies, or maybe they just have a bad breakup. If they lose their soulmate, does that mean they're only half a soul? A lot of people think that you need a soulmate to complete you, that you're only half a soul. There are other questions about soulmates, and if I have time, I'll mention them, but you probably will cover them. So hold on. Please talk about soulmates and twin flames.
Well, we understand clearly that in your culture there is a lot of emphasis upon finding that perfect match, that energy that complements you. We don't like to use the term completes you because all of you are very vibrant individual souls without any interaction from another soul. We do say in the culture a lot of emphasis is put upon it being, okay, soulmate, one, that's it, and when it's done, it's done. And we do think that's not accurate. There are a lot of good energy matches. Everything is based upon frequency, and there are some frequencies, other people, that are not good matches. And then there are those who are perfect matches, and you run into them, and the culture has deemed, okay, that's your soulmate, that's your, quote, twin flame, and everyone lives happily ever after in that moment. But most of you know that sometimes that isn't the case, that sometimes a person will abdicate a good energy match moment, or this, quote, twin flame moment. And that leaves the other person sort of sitting there going, okay, well, now what? And there's a lot of devastation around that because they'll say, okay, I had my one shot, it got messed up, and now I'm adrift in a linear reality where I don't know quite what to do next. We'd say it's important to know that good matches do exist, but the emphasis is on matches, not match. There can be many in a particular lifetime that are extremely good matches for you. So the concept of twin flame and soulmate, we do say that that is a label for a good energy match. The unfortunate part is that in the culture it has been deemed that, okay, there's one. And if that gets messed up, well, too bad for you. We would say very much that there can be many within a lifetime. Not necessarily all showing up at the same time, because, boy, would that be confusing. But we'd say that if you are with someone and you try very hard to make the energy work, and it's so dynamic when you're with them, but they may, for some reason, decide it's too much energy, can't handle it, and I'm bailing, I'm abdicating the arrangement. We'd say in that moment, do not despair. Yes, there will be a bit of grief because it could have been magnificent had both parties engaged it in the proper way. But sometimes it's too much for some, so they abdicate. It is important to realize that, yes, you do need to recover from that because it's ultimately a huge disappointment, but know that the probability of running into another one is just as equal as it was to the running into the first one. So do not despair. Do not feel like I give up. I can't do anything about this. We'd say take a deep breath and continue forward in your reality, because there are more than one good match in the cosmos for each of you. We'd say that also it's important to remember that perhaps you've been married for 40, 50 years to your soulmate. You were lucky. That happened. They commiserated. They came on board and said, yes, 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 I want to do this with you. And they do it. And then you reach an older age, let's say 70s, 80s, 90s, or sometimes even earlier, maybe in the 30s or 40s. And the other person, for whatever reason, moves out of the reality. Their lifespan has completed in a linear way. Now that leaves the person who's left behind, whether it's male or female, again, devastated in grief because they've lost the connection. They've lost the link that sort of kept them anchored in the reality. Again, we'd say, if you have a soulmate that has crossed over or a twin flame that's crossed over, the majority of the time they are mostly very concerned for you. They look back and say, oh, what's he, she going to do without me? I'm worried about her or him. Most of the time, a good, quote, soulmate will send another, not necessarily to take their place, but to have adventures with you, to talk to you, to be a part of your life in a very good way so that you're not alone. So we would say very much it's important to remember that there can be many good energy matches. If a partner moves on to another realm, most of the time they're going to help send you someone so that you're not alone. So we'd say that the concept of soulmate twin flame, yeah, it's kind of a true thing, but the absolute parameters built around it in the linear culture is inaccurate. It's all about good connection, a compromise of energy that comes together and creates an atmosphere of harmony. It can be done more than once in a lifetime. And to think otherwise is a very difficult thing to get through. And it's not true. So we would say take a deep breath and understand the concept of twin soul, soulmate, so that you can allow yourself to say, okay, I found it once, I can find it again. Or that the fact that the soulmate who has crossed or left will send you someone. So that is how we feel about that, Mr. Crawford.
Okay, Veronica, and just a specific follow-up. For those people who think they're half a soul unless they find a soulmate, maybe they go through the whole life and they don't find somebody that they think is a soulmate. Is there any such thing as a half a soul? Do you really need somebody else to complete you?
No, you do not. The important thing in each life is to expand your consciousness and awareness within you. Now, if you run into a soulmate, it's not that they're going to complete you or make you whole. You're not a half a soul. You're a full soul. And meeting them just expands the harmony even further. But if you never ran into someone who was considered a soulmate, you would still be a full, vibrant soul yourself. And to sit and feel that you're only half is completely inaccurate. You are full. You are an abundant energy all by yourself. And a lot of times that thought process is just what's needed to attract someone who's a good vibrational match with you, quote, the soulmate, so that they can come to you much quicker. So always be your full self. Never define yourself as a half a soul. There's no such thing as a half a soul. So decide today that you're going to be your full, vibrant self. That can bring about a lot of wonderful things.
Okay, Veronica, and now I would like to continue on our discussion about pets, which, last time you discussed how, pets have souls, they do incarnate if they want to, there is an afterlife, and all that. But we have many, many people who call in for readings, and they either talk exclusively about living pets, or they at least work that into the reading. And, they've been around for a while, years sometimes. So my question is, Veronica, how are you able to help people who have pet relationship issues? Is it like people? I mean, do you move into the pet's energy, or how do you know, sometimes at least, when that pet is upset about something, or give advice that, the people getting the reading seem to like?
We think those who own pets, who have dogs, cats, and other creatures that they hold dear to their heart, know clearly that they're individual energies and that they have a vibrant wisdom of their own. We'd say that we've talked to many who may have lost a pet and feel, okay, my life is over because Harry, my dog, is no longer in existence and I'm never going to see him again. Or will I? Which is usually their question. Pets are connected to you deeply. They oftentimes reincarnate many times in a physical life just to return to be in your presence. They oftentimes follow you from life to life to life, trying to keep up with you as you go upon your reincarnational journey. And they have a consciousness, sometimes it's much more pure and honest than humans are. Humans have a little bit more of a complicated, dramatic thing going on. But pets usually are very clear about who they are, what they're here to do, and they often come in a lot of times to teach humans about compassion, about empathy, about being sensitive to living beings. Many people ask us, well, why would these animals come in to be abused? We say, well, to teach lessons. The real advanced ones are the ones that come in sort of an abusive environment to draw attention to bring people to a better perspective of what they're really all about. If they suffer, there's usually an agenda to it that is going to be helpful for everyone involved. There are thousands of dogs, thousands of cats, and each of them attempt very much to connect with a human counterpart to give them a lesson or two. We'd say that animals, and this is more than just dogs and cats, are usually way more evolved than humans in most instances.
Okay, Veronica, well, this is a question that's so directly related that I thought I'd interject it. This is from Kyle. He says, my question is, what is corporal intelligence if you claim that some animals, which are considered less intelligent, are more evolved than some incarnations, some human incarnations? Is spiritual evolution more important than intellectual development? If so, what is the reasoning for one being more important than the other? Thank you so much.
Well, intelligence is pretty much linear stuff. You can have someone come in, even if they're human, and may not be as intelligent as, say, a scientist or someone who is successful in the linear world, but they come in with much empathy. They come in with a clear vision of how things should be. So you can't define evolution by merely intelligence. You have to define evolution by the spiritual moments of each creature, and that includes humans, as they go along their path. We would never say that animals are more intelligent than humans, but we would say that sometimes they have much more empathy and they have a clearer vision of what's important than most humans do. So we'd say it's not important what the intelligence level is, because there are many very intelligent people who simply don't have a clue of how to live or how to be or how to have empathy for others. So it's about the energy much more than it is about the intelligence. Yes, it can create a different atmosphere if you're more intelligent, but there are lesser intelligent beings that have equally an evolved perspective spiritually. So it is something to consider and think about.
Okay, Veronica, I'd like to now switch to the concept of manifesting in physical reality. And although I never endorse third parties, the one that I do is an entity called Seth, who spoke to Jane Roberts. He has a bunch of books. You should definitely read them if you're interested in the nature of consciousness from more of a scientific, intellectual point of view. I've read them all many times because they're just great, and probably the reason I even met April Crawford. So Seth said, as far as manifesting, there's just really a few rules of the universe. And one is that like attracts like, and that thought creates reality. So accordingly, it probably makes sense to think about what you think about. He also said the power is in the present. So that is, if you want to manifest, you can do it from the current time frame. But if you're living in the past or living in the future, it's just not going to work very well for you. So a lot of people do call in and ask about Seth and the Seth books. Veronica is very different, but she knows Seth and pretty much can answer any issues or questions that Seth readers are interested in. So, Veronica, what can you say about manifesting? Is this all good advice?
Yes, it's good advice. Manifestation does have to be a present moment. And all of you are, we'll say, guilty at times of living in the past and trying to create your life from a past moment. And there's another whole sector that's living in the future and has their feet not planted firmly in the present and can't understand why they can't manifest, because they've got the future thing all figured out, but they're not present enough to bring it into their now moment. Being present is one of the most important things in physical reality. You have a very colorful mind. All of you do, no matter what the intelligence level is. All of you have a colorful thought process. And it's really easy to trip yourself up and confuse yourself and circle around things, all the while wanting to bring a particular item into the reality. Bringing that particular item in also bears a lot of responsibility, because if you're bringing a new item into the reality and it's different, then that's going to blend in with your current moment and change your current moment quite a bit. So you have to be responsible for the blending part of it. So you need to be somewhat thoughtful about what you do want to manifest. So take a deep breath every day and decide that, all right, this is a particular item I want to bring in. I'm not going to jump into the future. I'm not going to fold back into the past. I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to put both feet on the floor, and I'm going to think about this in a very present moment. That is probably the most powerful thing you can do in a manifestation. The universe will provide. The universe wants to give it to you. But if you're bouncing around in past, present, future, it will be difficult to do.
Thank you, Veronica. And I just want to mention one of my favorite quotes from Veronica, and that is, the universe doesn't care what you want. It only wants to give it to you. Anyway, that's one of my favorites. So, let's see. What do we talk about now? How about we talk about probabilities? You know, a lot of people call in, not a lot, but some people call in and they want fortune telling, which immediately they don't get through, because I say go to the carnival and put your money in one of those machines. There's a reason that predicting the future with certainty is impossible, and that anybody says they can do it or don't understand how things work. Now, Veronica will talk about future events and specifically, future choices that people want to make, like business people or whatever, somebody wants to move. And she will talk about the energy and stuff, but it's always in terms of probability. So, Veronica, could you talk a little bit about probabilities and why you don't make predictions as far as this is definitely going to happen?
Every single dramatic in physical reality is predicated upon choice. Now, if you're trying to predict, okay, is this event going to happen, you have to take into perspective all of the players in that evolution or that moment that's going to happen. And everyone can be benign with it, or they can abdicate from it. So it's important to remember that everything is considered probability due to the choices that all players make in any given moment. Things can change. People can abdicate. People can decide, okay, instead of going right, I'm going to last minute decide I'm going to go left. And that changes the dynamic of the moment that everyone is trying to create. We can look at the energy of a particular situation and name the probabilities around it, because sometimes that is available. But until everybody makes the choices, it's not set in stone and can be contradicted and moved around and completely turned around by the end of everybody's choice-making process. So if you want something to happen, you take a look at it and you consider the probabilities around it and make your choices based upon those probabilities and what is necessary for those probabilities to happen. Otherwise, if you sit back and just let it unfold, it's random. It can go in any direction. Even if it's a two-sided thing, it's just like, is it going to be red or is it going to be black? Not available until everybody makes the choices. And then it'll either be black or red, but it's determined as everyone makes the choices.
So this is the portion of the show where I ask Veronica to give her message to the planet. But before that, maybe we'll just bring in somebody who was an eyewitness to the building of the pyramids or the execution of Marie Antoinette. No, I am just kidding, and Veronica's looking at me because she just doesn't fully get my humor after all these years. So I'm going to hand the phone to Veronica, and Veronica can say whatever she wants, her message to the world. Hold on.
You all live in a world that there's not very much trust in at the moment. The earth plane has become a chaotic whirlwind of distrust, lies, silliness. All of you are sort of in the mix of that, watching that, observing that, and wondering what just happened here. In a world that is not emanating a lot of trust at the moment, each of you individually needs to understand that then you need to go internal and learn to trust yourself. Learn to trust the thoughts that you have. Learn to move through the moment in a trusting way that, okay, no matter what's going on around me, I'm still centered within me. I have trust that I am doing good work. I have trust that those around me are receiving energy from me that is solid. All of it starts within you. Now, we know you're all looking around going, well, what just happened here? But what needs to be done is for all of you, instead of looking outside for all the answers, start to go inward. Start to think in your heart chakra and make your actions, your daily routine, a matter of personal trust within yourself. Trusting that you are making good decisions, that you are living according to your dynamic and your soulful energy, and trusting that you can bring in your positiveness into a world that kind of needs it. If every one of you did that, things would settle down. Going to be difference of opinion. There's always going to be someone who says, oh, I think this way is better. And then there's going to be someone who's going to argue, are you out of your mind? That's not better. This is better. That's always going to be there. But at the moment, there's such a lack of trust with all the people who are having conversation that it's become a little ridiculous. So we'd say, if you are looking around and saying, what happened here? You can't go outward to fix it. All of you need to go internal and say, I'm going to start with my energy, and I'm going to live my life according to how I feel it should be done. I'm not going to throw stones at anyone else because everyone has entitled to their opinion and their process. But I'm going to trust that I am doing good things. I'm going to trust that my soul is making the right decisions for me, and I'm going to stand by those decisions. There can be differences of opinion, but if they are done soulfully and respectfully, then progress can be made. And you can't fix it from the outside. You have to go internal, each and every one of you, to provide that level of trust, that level of integrity, and we think that your earth plane could be remedied by such a perspective.
Thank you, Veronica. This concludes the interesting part of this podcast and radio broadcast. I will just mention that if you'd like to find out more about April Crawford and Veronica, you just go to Amazon.com and search April Crawford. You'll find out a lot of stuff. And also, I don't know if I mentioned before that Veronica actually has her own Facebook page, which I administer, and it's Veronica via April Crawford. It goes out if you want some additional information. And talk to you next time. Thank you.